May 5th, 1945, 10:17 a.m., Bly, Oregon. Elsie Mitchell knelt in the pine forest, her 5-year-old daughter Joan clinging to her hand. Beside them, 5 other children from the local Sunday school class gathered around a strange object half buried in pine needles. It was made of paper, 6 feet across, with a basket hanging beneath. Elsie reached out to touch the paper, curious but cautious. At that moment, a loud explosion shattered the quiet. The blast threw Elsie and the children to the ground. When rescuers arrived minutes later, they found Elsie, Joan, and 3 other children dead. 2 more children were critically injured. The object they had found was no toy. It was a Japanese balloon bomb, part of the secret weapon project codenamed Fugo, the first intercontinental weapon in history. The Fugo balloon bombs were born from Japan's desperate need to strike back at the United States. By 1944, the war in the Pacific was going disastrously for Japan. American forces had captured Guadalcanal, Tarawa, and Saipan, inching closer to the Japanese home islands. American bombers were pounding Tokyo and other cities nightly, destroying factories and killing civilians. Japan's navy was decimated. Its air force reduced to kamikaze suicide missions. The Japanese military needed a way to attack the U.S. mainland, to terrorize civilians, destroy infrastructure, and force America to divert resources from the Pacific. But Japan had no aircraft with the range to reach the United States, and its submarine fleet was too small to mount a sustained attack. The solution, dreamed up by the Japanese Army's Technical Research Institute, was radical. Use a jet stream, a high-altitude wind current, to carry bombs across the Pacific Ocean. The concept of using balloons as weapons was not new. During World War I, both Germany and France had used observation balloons for artillery spotting, and Germany had launched Zeppelins to bomb British cities. But the Fugo project was different. It aimed to send weapons 5,000 miles across the ocean, guided not by pilots, but by the wind. The man leading the project was Major General Tsuyoshi Kusaba, a veteran of the Japanese Army's Chemical Warfare Unit. Kusaba believed that if the balloons could carry incendiary bombs, they could start wildfires in the U.S. West, where dry forests and grasslands were vulnerable to flame. The goal was not just to kill civilians, but to create chaos, force the U.S. to deploy troops to fight fires, disrupt logging and farming, and erode public morale. The technical challenge of building an intercontinental balloon was enormous. The balloon needed to be lightweight enough to reach the jet stream, which flows at 30,000 to 40,000 feet, but strong enough to withstand high winds and temperature changes. It needed to carry a payload of bombs and a mechanism to drop them at the right time. And it needed to stay aloft for 3 to 5 days, the time it took for the jet stream to carry it from Japan to the U.S. mainland. Kusaba's team, which included 300 engineers and scientists, began by testing different materials for the balloon. Silk was too expensive and scarce. Japan's silk supplies had been cut off by Allied blockades. Paper, treated with rubber to make it waterproof, was cheaper and more abundant. The team settled on washi, a traditional Japanese paper made from mulberry bark. Washi is strong, lightweight, and flexible, ideal for withstanding the stress of high-altitude flight. Each balloon was made by gluing together 600 to 700 sheets of washi, using a paste made from potato starch. The finished balloon was 33 feet in diameter, filled with hydrogen gas, and could lift a payload of 1,000 pounds. Next came the navigation system. The balloon had no engine or steering. Its course was entirely controlled by the jet stream. But to stay in the jet stream, the balloon needed to maintain a constant altitude. If it climbed too high, the hydrogen would expand and burst the balloon. If it fell too low, it would be caught in lower winds and drift off course. The solution was a simple but clever altitude control system, a set of sandbags attached to the basket, and a barometer linked to a small explosive charge. When the balloon climbed above 40,000 feet, the barometer triggered a charge that dropped the sandbag. The loss of weight made the balloon rise higher. When it fell below 30,000 feet, another charge dropped a different sandbag, making the balloon descend slightly. This system kept the balloon within the jet stream's range for days at a time. The payload was equally carefully designed. Each balloon carried 4 11-pound incendiary bombs, filled with a mixture of magnesium and thermite, which burns at 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit, and 133-pound high-explosive bomb. The bombs were attached to a timing mechanism, a clockwork device that released one bomb every 24 hours. After all bombs were dropped, the timing mechanism triggered a final charge that destroyed the balloon, preventing it from being captured and studied by the Americans. Construction of the Fugo balloons began in early 1944 in secret factories across Japan. Most of the workers were women and teenagers. Men of fighting age had been drafted into the military. The factories were located in remote areas, such as the mountains of Hokkaido and Kyushu, to avoid Allied bombing. Workers were told they were building weather balloons to support the war effort. Few knew they were making weapons. The conditions were harsh: 12-hour shifts, minimal food, and strict secrecy. Anyone caught talking about the project was arrested by the military police. The first test launch took place on November 3, 1944, from a base near Omura, Kyushu. The balloon rose into the sky, caught the jet stream, and disappeared over the Pacific. Japanese meteorologists tracked its progress using radio signals from a small transmitter in the basket. 5 days later, the signal vanished, presumed to have reached the U.S. West Coast. The test was declared a success. General Kasaba ordered full-scale production, 1,000 balloons per month, with a goal of launching 10,000 by the end of 1945. The first confirmed Fugo balloon to reach the U.S. was found on November 10, 1944, near San Pedro, California. A fisherman spotted it floating in the ocean and reported it to the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard retrieved the balloon and sent it to a military laboratory in San Francisco. Engineers there were stunned. It was made of paper, not metal, and had no visible engine or controls. They quickly realized it was a weapon, but they had no idea how it had crossed the Pacific. The U.S. military launched a secret investigation, codenamed Project Firefly, to track the balloons and figure out how to stop them. Over the next 6 months, more than 300 Fugo balloons were reported across the U.S. West, from Alaska to Mexico, and even in Canada. Most were found in remote areas, forests, deserts, and farmland. Some were caught in power lines, causing blackouts. Others landed in lakes or rivers, their paper skins dissolving in the water. A few were found by civilians, like the one in Bly, Oregon, that killed Elsie Mitchell and the children. But most balloons vanished without a trace, either crashing in uninhabited areas or exploding after dropping their bombs. The U.S. military faced a dilemma. If they publicized the balloon bombs, they risked panicking civilians and giving Japan valuable information about where the balloons were landing. If they kept it secret, they couldn't warn people about the danger. After the Bly tragedy, the military chose a middle ground. They issued a limited warning to residents of the West Coast, advising them to avoid unusual objects and report any sightings to the authorities. They also banned news coverage of the balloons to prevent Japan from learning that their weapon was reaching the U.S. To stop the balloons, the U.S. military tried several tactics. They sent fighter planes patrol the West Coast, looking for balloons in the sky. But the balloons were hard to spot. They were white, blending in with the clouds, and flew at 30,000 feet, above most fighter planes' maximum altitude. They also tried to disrupt the jet stream using chemical sprays, but the tests were unsuccessful. The most effective measure was psychological. The U.S. military spread false information through Japanese prisoners of war, claiming that the balloons were landing in the ocean and not reaching the mainland. Japan's military, already short on resources, began to doubt the project's effectiveness. By April 1945, they had reduced production to 500 balloons per month. If you found this interesting, give a thumbs up to show your support. Drop a wonderful in the comments to let me know you're still with me. Stick around till the end, because I reveal 3 mind-blowing facts you won't want to miss. Haven't followed yet? Hit that follow button so you won't miss our next deep dive. Trust me, the best is yet to come. The Fugo project's flaws became increasingly clear as the months passed. The altitude control system was unreliable. Many balloons either burst from high altitude or fell into the ocean before reaching the U.S. The timing mechanism often failed, causing bombs to drop prematurely or not at all. The incendiary bombs, designed to start wildfires, were ineffective in wet weather, common on the U.S. West Coast during winter. And the balloons were impossible to target. They landed randomly, with no way to aim them at cities or military bases. By the end of the war, Japan had launched an estimated 9,300 Fugo balloons. Only 300 were confirmed to have reached the U.S., and only one, the Bly balloon, caused casualties. The project was a military failure, but the Fugo balloons were a technological breakthrough. They were the first intercontinental weapon in history, capable of traveling farther than any missile or aircraft of the time. They proved that wind currents could be used to carry weapons across oceans, a concept that would later influence the design of cruise missiles and drones. And they demonstrated Japan's ability to innovate under pressure, even as its industrial base collapsed. The end of the war came before the Fugo project could be fully scaled up. On August 15, 1945, Japan surrendered following the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The remaining Fugo balloons were destroyed and the factories were shut down. General Kasaba was arrested by the U.S. military and interrogated about the project. He admitted that the Fugo balloons had been a desperate measure, but he defended them as a necessary part of the war effort. He was never charged with war crimes. The U.S. military was more interested in studying the balloon's technology than prosecuting its creators. After the war, the Fugo project was largely forgotten. The U.S. military declassified Project Firefly's records in 1950, but the story received little attention, overshadowed by the atomic bomb and the end of the war. The families of the Bly victims were awarded a posthumous medal for Elsie Mitchell, but the tragedy was rarely mentioned in history books. In Japan, the project was ignored, part of the country's efforts to forget its role in the war. But in recent years, historians have rediscovered the Fugo balloons. They are now recognized as a pivotal moment in weapons technology, a precursor to modern intercontinental weapons. The altitude control system's basic design is still used in weather balloons and scientific research craft. The idea of using wind or air currents to guide weapons influenced the U.S. Navy's Tomahawk cruise missile, which uses terrain and wind data to navigate. And the Fugo project's lessons about the challenges of intercontinental warfare, range, accuracy, and payload still shape military strategy today. The human cost of the Fugo balloons, though small compared to other World War II weapons, is a stark reminder of war's cruelty. Elsie Mitchell and the 5 children in Bly were innocent civilians, killed by a weapon designed to terrorize. Their deaths were the only combat-related casualties on U.S. soil during World War II, a fact that makes the tragedy even more poignant. In 1950, a memorial was erected in Bly's pine forest, where the explosion occurred. It bears the names of the victims and a simple inscription: "They died for their country in peacetime, victims of war's last gasp." For the Japanese workers who built the Fugo balloons, the project was a source of shame and confusion. Many later recalled feeling betrayed. They had been told they were building weather balloons, not weapons. Some suffered from guilt, knowing their work had killed innocent people. In 1990, a group of former workers traveled to Bly to apologize to victims' families. It was a small gesture, but it helped begin a process of healing between the two nations. The Fugo balloons also raise important questions about the ethics of weapons development. Is it ever justified to use weapons that target civilians? Can a technological breakthrough be celebrated when it is used to kill? The answers are not simple. The Fugo project was a product of Japan's desperation, a last-ditch attempt to win a war it was losing. But it was also a violation of the laws of war, which prohibit targeting civilians. The balloon's failure to cause widespread damage does not erase that fact. Today, only a handful of Fugo balloons survive. One is on display at the Smithsonian Institution's National Museum of American History in Washington, D.C. Its paper skin faded but intact, the basket and bombs removed for safety. Another is at the Yamato Museum in Kure, Japan, where it is displayed as part of an exhibit on Japan's World War II technology. These artifacts are not just relics of a bygone war. They are reminders of the lengths nations will go to in war, and the human cost of those choices. The Fugo balloon bombs were not a success for Japan. They did not terrorize the U.S. mainland, nor did they change the course of the war. But they were a milestone in weapons technology, the first time humans had built a weapon that could cross an ocean on its own. They paved the way for the intercontinental missiles and drones of today, which can strike targets anywhere in the world in hours. And they serve as a warning. Technology can be used to heal or to harm, and the choices we make about how to use it will shape the future. As we look back on World War II, the Fugo balloons are often overlooked. They are overshadowed by the atomic bomb, the D-Day landings, and the battles of Pacific. But they deserve to be remembered. They were a product of innovation and desperation, of hope and horror. They were the world's first intercontinental weapon. A small paper balloon that crossed an ocean, changed history, and left a legacy that endures to this day. In the pine forest near Bly, Oregon, the memorial to Elsie Mitchell and the children stands quiet. The trees have grown taller, the pine needles thicker, but the memory of that May Day in 1945 remains. It is a memory of war's reach, even the most peaceful places, and of the innocent lives lost to weapons designed to kill. The Fugo balloons may have been forgotten by many, But for those who lost loved ones, they will never be erased. They are a reminder that war does not end at the front lines. It follows us home in ways we never expect.